Folks, how are you? It has been a remarkable day overnight. We hit 16,000 subscribers last night overnight. Thank you so much if you've helped me reach that lofty goal. 2023 has been a bumper year for the channel. I'm going to try and push some more next year. Hopefully we can get towards 20,000 next year. That'd be amazing if we can do. But 16,000, you know, for a channel that does what I do, I have a very niche concept model and content, you know. For a channel that does what I do, getting 16,000 is an amazing number. I don't really do lore, I don't really do battle reports, I don't really do painting. I have my own little niche in the hobby that only I really cater for, I think. So, again, thank you so much for getting me here and for getting my message out there and for helping mental health and the people around you. Today is going to be one of those days where our main hobby nightmare, our main event later on, deals with an absolute hobby hero, an amazing guy who did a lot for a friend of his in his time of need. So, I can't wait to read that out to you. Happy New Year. If I don't see you now before the end of the year, I'm actually going to Newcastle this year for a few scoops with my other half, so that's going to be fun. And yeah, so Happy New Year. Have a wonderful and safe New Year, alright? And if you're on your own, just remember the Discord's there. Reach out to the people that are around you. Even if you don't think they want to know you, dude, get on the phone, get on the text, message somebody, anybody. Let them know you're alone and you need somebody. People will come to you and things will get better. I promise. Alright? Cool. Let's jump in to some hobby nightmares. That's the first pre-read I've done in quite a while. Free Kill says, "Hey North, I hope this letter reaches you well." It does, thank you. "You can call me Free Kill. I'm coming back into the hobby after 15 years away, and your channel and the community Discord has been a big part of keeping the fire inflamed. Painting whilst listening to Hobby Nightmares has become a hobby ritual, so much so that I decided to regale everybody with a nightmare of my own. Maybe this will be the start of many to send in. Hopefully so. My first introduction into the hobby and 40k was when I was 14 at the start of 4th edition. My father, not a hobbyist himself, but looking for some father bonding time, took me to a hobby shop mostly geared towards model cars, military tanks and aeroplanes, and RC cars. Off I ran through the tightly packed sheet metal racks, stacked brim to brim with all manner of muscle cars and Tamiya tanks, I suppose that says. Suddenly, there it was, tucked away in a corner, a small black wire rack with a sign that read Games Workshop in red and yellow letters. Packed on its shelves were boxes of Space Marines, Tyranids and Necrons, and I imagined the battles in space as mighty warriors classed with space skeletons and bugs. I pleaded with my father to buy me the Battle for Macragge box set, and he argued his hardest to convince me that I could get a couple of model kits for the price of the box, but I was unconvinced. We would put together the Space Marines and bugs and clash on the war-torn planet of Macragge. After my first box, I was hooked. I worked various jobs for family and neighbours to make money to build up my Space Marine army. Since I could not afford a lot of miniatures, my army was designed with a lot of kit-bashed custom captains, librarians and chaplains, maxed out with as much war gear as I could equip to maximise their points values. My favourite hero was a chapter master. I put on a bike with a teleport beacon. I green stuffed a baseball cap and a pokeball for him and called him Ash Ketchum. His sole purpose was to round one full sprint as far as the centre of the board as he could, survive a hellstorm of bullets, throw his pokeball and spawn a load of assault terminators right down the enemy's throat. My armies were never meta, but I loved having my big custom characters making names for themselves on the battlefield. That's something that's been lost, because we don't really need teleport homers anymore, you know what I mean? But that was a really cool thing to do back in the day, where you'd have somebody with a teleport homer, and all of a sudden, bang, there's loads of things around them that don't scatter. Awesome stuff. After I finally had an army, I found a local game store online that advertised they had tables for 40k on Saturday nights. I went to my father and eagerly asked him if he could take me this weekend so I could play, and he said yes. When we arrived, I am greeted with one of the most spectacular stores I have seen for hobby, wargaming and RC cars. Unfortunately, the store is no longer around, and its closing is certainly a hobby nightmare for another time. We walk up to the counter and are greeted by the manager, who sees my large Stanley toolbox and smiles largely, and asks if I am here for the Warhammer 40k night. With a big smile, I showed him my Space Marine librarian, and he complimented what I know was a horrible paint job. That's a hard bit of the job, man. Oh man, that's amazing! It's like this blob of paint on a grey model. After my father and the owner chatted for a bit longer, the owner pointed us to the gaming tables. There, to no one but possibly my father's surprise, there were a ragtag group of 30 to 40 somethings viciously rolling dice and snapping measuring tapes across the table. My father was not very excited, impressed to say the least, and I'm sure wondered why his 14-year-old son would want to play games with a group of fully grown adults. Just as I thought my father was going to yank me back into the car and never return, we were greeted by another father and his two sons around my age. Yeah, that other dad has seen the look in your dad's face and has gone, I'm going to save the situation. What a guy. He introduced himself as Rob, and his two sons, Alvin and Mark, were playing a game with their armies of Tyranids and Necrons, whilst he was painting some fantasy high elves. Rob was an amazing painter, and was a true shepherd of the hobby. The rest of the evening, Rob talked with my father, whilst I played a match with my Space Marines against Alvin's Orcs. If it was not for that chance meeting, I would have missed out on two incredible hobby friends, and I believe my father would have not let me come back every Saturday. After a few months passed, one of the regulars, a Chaos player named Keith, decided to create a campaign for us in store. He created a custom galaxy with different planets to fight for control that would offer different benefits to those that held a majority of its sectors. We played our games, and I had a blast playing against the different forces of Eldar, Orcs, and Chaos, mostly losing my matches, but always having a good time. Most matches always felt close, with the occasional getting blasted away by Tal round 1, or trying to fight Eldar that can fire and shoot in and out of cover, leaving you like Swiss cheese before you can even roll an attack dice. All the while, blissfully unaware of the lengths a full-grown adult would take to cheat in a game against those half their age that are still learning the rules. One part of 4th edition was a secret army list. Before a game, you and your opponent would agree on a points amount and create a list that you would keep secret from the enemy. Whilst this was fine in tournament play, where players have to submit their lists to judges before play, you can see where this can lead to problems when playing local games. Yeah, that's a terrible idea. That is a terrible idea. As a new player, it leads to a lot of gotchas, as you would discover new abilities or war gear. You know, and I quote, "Think your squad is safe from that charging cover? Sorry, my squad has frag grenades. That demon your las cannon could AP? Sorry, it's got an invulnerable save from its war gear now." That was mostly not an issue at our store, and most people were happy to share their list either before or after, and help you learn more about their armies. Then there was Keith. Keith believed secret army lists are a part of the rules, and it makes the game more tactically challenging, at least to him. Keith always seemed to have the perfect demon spawn in reserve, or the one piece of war gear that was perfect for the situation at hand, always winning the battle in the last few rounds. People wouldn't challenge him, and on the few occasions he did, he would flip through his journal, pointing out the different stat lists that made up his army, and people would rather not argue and move on. Maybe it had to do with the fact that he had made the campaign and had brought in terrain and other accessories for the group. Whatever the reason, it went unchecked for far too long. Okay. The breaking point came during the campaign's battle between Alvin's War Orcs and Keith's Chaos Space Marines. With Alvin poised to win, Keith pulled a surprise. Khorne bloodletters out of reserves. Alvin, suspicious, demanded a points count, and what followed felt like a courtroom drama. Alvin, armed with the rules and a blank sheet of paper, exposed Keith's inflated points values, forcing him to list every unit and war gear used. Keith conceded, and his reputation suffered a massive blow. He attempted to return for game nights, but players were reluctant to face him now, leading to his eventual disappearance from the scene. Reflecting on this story, I appreciate Alvin for standing up to an adult male when other adults hesitated to pick him up on things. It's a fond look back at my younger years in the hobby, and many more stories to share than I have. Thanks for taking the time to read, and I hope you and the community enjoyed it. Till next time, happy holidays, and have a fantastic New Year's. Thanks, Free Kill. So, yeah, I mean, cheaters, they do prosper for a time. It is a big shame to state, but it is true. For a time, cheaters will prosper, because people are, in the hobby, by and large, quite, shall I say, reasonable and polite. And they won't want to take you to task on certain things that you're doing with your army, and that's fine. People get things wrong, that's not an issue. But taking advantage of a big blind spot in the rules to cheat somebody far younger than you is a piece of shit move. And doing it to cheat at all is a bad move, but especially newcomers. Why would you do that? Especially something that can be checked as easily as Alvin did right there. You have to be some sort of moron, or this guy's gotten away with it for so long that he just sort of skates over it and is like, yeah, you know, I'm going to get away with it anyway, so why bother, you know? It's going to be fine. This is why you should always, always, always challenge people, guys. Always. If something doesn't look right or feel right, just say. Just say, do you mind me checking that rule, please, mate? Or do you mind checking that rule? You know what I mean? Don't throw your dummy out the pram just because somebody's getting their rules wrong. Best thing to do, check the rules, and if they get it wrong, get on with it. And always, always, always use your intuition. If you know that this person's new to the hobby, don't be a dick about them getting rules wrong. Alright? Don't do that. I've seen people do that. Go, I'm not playing anymore, dude. I'm picking up my models, I'm going away, because, you know, you're just cheating. No. What if they don't know their rules? Okay? Hobby etiquette is huge. And I will do a video on it in the new year. I think it's about time that I do a hobby night, well, not hobby nightmares, but a 40k rant on the etiquette of playing a game of 40k, the do's and don'ts. Because so many people have come to me over the years. One just said it the other day on a comment on one of my YouTube videos. If it was you, then hello. When they said, I didn't realise you couldn't pick up an opponent's models without asking them. That seems really obvious to me, but it's not to some people, you know what I mean? So I'm going to do a video on that in the new year, I think, maybe early on in the new year, to get us off to a good start. Maybe in January, I do a lot of primer 40k rants, you know? Like, if you're new to the hobby, start here, with these 40k rants. And if you're not new to the hobby, you can get some catharsis out of what I'm talking about, you know what I mean? Anyway, moving on to my next hobby nightmare. But before that, if you like what I do, please subscribe to the channel. It's down below. Thank you very much for getting me to 16,000 subscribers. Let's push on again in the new year and see where we go. And also, if you want to buy me a pint over the new year period, my Patreon is down below. If you want to buy me a beer just to say thank you for anything that I've done over the year, or if you think I've done a good job, let me know. Put it in the comment section down below. That'll be nice to read as we go towards the new year. Right. Jack says, hey North, please call me Jack. Okay? This is a nightmare of sorts, but more of something that I came to realise long after the fact that I wish I knew sooner. You see, for a long time, I have struggled with depression and anxiety. Both diagnosed, and I struggled to take meds due to the huge toll they would take on my body. I threw weight on very quickly on the medication, and exercising is one of the main ways I keep my mind focused and happy. In the end, I was advised to just stop taking them and to do therapy. I've loved therapy since I started doing it, and it was through that medium about a decade ago that Warhammer 40,000 was first brought up to me. I had noted to my therapist, who was also a nerd, that I loved Dune and wargaming in general. He asked me if I'd heard of 40k. I told him I had, and he recommended a few places to start. That was the beginning of a 10-year-long love affair so far with Sisters of Battle that I feel will never truly end. When I first started the hobby, it was very expensive for Sisters players, and no plastic miniatures were really a thing yet for that army, despite all other armies generally getting updates over the years, small as those may be. At least they had plastic models, unlike the Sisters of the time. Through the hobby, I met Dave, our local Games Workshop manager, as we hit it off immediately. He was a top guy and loved to collect Inquisition stuff. He would talk to me for hours about the hobby and what was going on in my job, if I was happy, and was more than happy to discuss things away from the hobby when I wanted to. Sometimes on my days off, I'd head to the store with a set of models to build and just sit there in comfortable silence with him as we worked on stuff and listened to music. We were both software designers in our spare time. I had a job at a local bank, developing soft for them, so was doing quite well at this point in time. Every now and again, we'd talk about life, the universe and everything before I'd go and get us both a coffee. Just a lovely time. He was also doing very well just as a manager in general. The store was full constantly, and things for him were generally looking up, just as they were for me. You see, I had met a girl at my job, and I'd been seeing her for some time. This may not seem like a big deal. This may not seem like a big deal for many out there, but for a guy like me, it was. I was never great with women, and the fact that I had met someone was pretty huge. She moved in with me after a few weeks of seeing her, and of all people, I knew only Dave was the one to counsel me against having her that far into my life so quickly. Eventually, Dave moved on from Games Workshop, and we stopped speaking, as my girlfriend, Hallie, didn't get along with him. She told me she didn't like the way he looked at her. Me, being an idiotic simp, went along with her and cut him out of my life. Okay, before I go anywhere, that was a mistake, and yeah, it's hard sometimes, man, because some guys that you're out there with will tell you your girlfriend ain't shit because they don't have a girlfriend. Do you know what I mean? That's simply all they're doing it for. They're just jealous. But there are other guys out there, a lot of them, who know their stuff. They absolutely know their stuff almost all of the time. And they will be able to tell you, look, that ain't kosher. Whatever's going on there ain't good. And those are the guys you want to listen to. It's a minefield out there, dude. It's a minefield. Use your intuition. Okay? If it looks like a goat, beats like a goat, smells like a goat, it's probably a goat. You know? Use your intuition. If you're getting a bad feeling from a woman, and one of your most trusted friends says, not sure about her, mate, kick her ass to the curb. Even if she's not done anything yet, get rid of her. If you're getting a bad vibe from a woman, and one of your friends says, not sure about that, mate, and you trust them, get rid of her. Alright, that's my advice. But if you're not getting any bad vibes, and she's really nice to you, and your friend says that, get to the bottom of why he said that, right? Because, you know, and if it's jealousy, maybe back away from that friend for a bit, you know? And if it's not, and he's got reasons, he'll bring them to you, you know? Exactly. Eventually, the inevitable happened, and I found out that Hallie had been cheating on me, and, like an idiot, I let her back in after her constant begging and promised to be good from now on. But it's your first big girlfriend, man. You gotta give yourself a break for making these mistakes. I think every man has to make these mistakes. Eventually. You know, you get a girlfriend, she breaks your heart, you let her back in. You know, happens. Happened to me. Happened to me. Like, my first ever serious girlfriend broke up with me. Right? Didn't cheat on me, but broke up with me. And then, like, 6 months later, wanted to get back with me, and I took her back. Then she cheated on me. And then I split up with her, and that was it. You know what I mean? But that was my fault. I let her back in. She's already done you know, she's done the dirty on me once before by just kicking me to the curb for no reason. Well, don't let her back in. You learn. You learn through experience, man. Anyway. She actually gaslighted me into thinking it was my fault she cheated the first time round because I was working a lot and was always away. Yeah, that type. Yeah, I know, man. I know. I've heard about such women. I've experienced such women. They are the scum of the earth. Scum of the earth. What, you're working to support me? That means you can't be around a lot? Oh, I'm going to go suck on this stick over here to make myself feel better. Get out. Get in the fucking sea. Get in the bin. Right? Sellotape the bin closed. Throw the bin in the sea. Off it goes. And she'll hopefully she lands an island somewhere and annoys them for a bit. Anyway. Or bypasses them altogether and goes to America. That'd be awesome. Anyway. Then, inevitably, a year later, it happened again. And this time, it was a dude who called me and told me he had been seeing Hallie for a few weeks, and then found her on a random Facebook search that she had 2 Facebook accounts, and on the second, I had been listed as her boyfriend. This girl has no fucking brain. As well. You know what I mean? If you're going to cheat, at least put more effort into not being caught. Jesus Christ. You know, she just changed the second name or something? That's ridiculous. How long did she expect to get away with that? He apologised to me and told me he had cut her loose and advised me to do the same. When Hallie got home that night, she was in a terrible mood, yeah, I wonder why, and took it all out on me, saying she had just had a bad day at work and to fuck off and leave her be. I told her, and I quote, "Are you sure it's not because Matt broke up with you?" Unquote. Her face went white, and all hell broke loose. I kicked her out that night, telling her to find somewhere on the streets, as she was no longer welcome in my flat. I packed her shit as she screamed at me, hit me, cried, and battered doors and walls. I threw her closed cases full of stuff down the stairs and out the door, and told her to follow them before I called the police. She didn't move. She sat there like a petulant child, so I called the police. Yeah, she's not sorry, dude. She's sorry she was caught. That's what it is. The flat was in my name only. I paid for everything. This was my property. The police came and removed her, kicking and screaming from my doorstep. Yes! Yes. That is the only time they would as well. If they've got no other recourse. If they have no other recourse, they'll get rid of her. Every other time, they'll tell you to keep her in your house. Even if she's doing shit to you. Every single time. In the UK. I'm telling you now. They'll come round. Even if she's whacking you in front of them, they'll just be like, listen, you know, it's not safe for outside. Can you keep it here? Do you know what I mean? That's how much they fucking get away with. Honest to God. The only time you have anything to stand on is if it's your property and nothing to do with her. Then you say, yeah, get her out. I don't want her in my private property. She's assaulting me. She's wrecking my home. She's wrecking my property. Get her out, please. They will then remove her from the premises. Because that's your house, right? There are times there where you can have squatters' rights and all that in certain places in the UK. That has happened. You know, but hopefully they see sense and see the situation for what it is and they get rid of her like they did here. I do know certain police officers would, of course, say, no, she's allowed to stay here, blah, 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 because police these days don't want to enforce the fucking law. But, you know, is what it is. Ugh. The abuse did not stop there. Constant messaging and phone calls from her family, constant visits from her at the front door, to the point that I had to get the locks changed, and eventually, the entire situation just drove me under. Then the pandemic hits. Yeah. And the company I work for lays off a good percentage of its people, including me, over the year 2020. Now jobless, and growing more and more poor by the second, battered emotionally, I was ready to give up entirely. On New Year's Eve 2020, I was sitting alone in my flat, looking at a large bottle of Painkillers with intent. I just sat there, silently imagining if it would be painful or not if I took the whole bottle with a bottle of vodka. Dude, that is the lowest. I've only been that low once, I've said this before on the channel, but it was when my relationship in America broke down. I know it's going to sound really weak and stupid now that I think about it, but at the time it wasn't, you know. I'd moved over to America, and my life had had so many false starts and so many false dawns where it seemed like everything was going to go well and everything was going to be fine, and then it just crashed down on me. And this was the one thing that I'd been sold down the river on, right? Literally, this relationship in America was the one thing I had literally bet the fucking farm on going over there and it working out, because there were no signs it wasn't going to. Do you know what I mean? And out of nowhere, she torpedoes the entire thing and ends the relationship, right? And leaves me sitting in the house on my own, trying to figure out what I do from here in a country that I don't know. If you'd have given me a switch and said, listen, North, if you flick that switch, you'll be gone, right? It just goes black. And nobody ever knew you existed, so nobody gets hurt, and it's painless. There was a good hour there where I would have flicked the switch. Definitely. There's a good hour there where I would have done it. You know, I'm too much of a coward to hurt myself. But if somebody had given me that choice, I would have done it. The Fulgrim choice, you know, the Fulgrim choice. You'll know what I mean if you've ever read. I think it's the Fulgrim novel on East Van when just after he's killed Ferrus Manus, right? You'll know what I mean. I would have made that choice for a good hour. So I know what you're feeling, dude. I know what you're feeling. It is not fun. I would not wish it on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. It is not something that I would want anybody to go through. It's shit. It's the shits. Anyway. I just sat there silently imagining if it would be painful or not if I took that entire bottle with a bottle of vodka. Then my phone goes. It's a text from Dave. Fancy a pint? It read. That's all it said. And I did. And so I went to meet him in town. He told me he had heard what happened through mutual friends and was really sorry he was not there. He only heard over Christmas what had been going on. I told him it was not his fault. It was her fault, and mine, for cutting him out, and told him I was sorry for not believing him when he had told me he thought she was bad news. We had a good evening and brought in the new year with a bunch of his friends over loads of drinks, and I had a really good time. The next morning we went for breakfast and ended up heading back to mine, and then, with my Warhammer in tow, we cracked open a few beers and played a game of his Black Legion against my Sisters of Battle. Finally, plastic models. Wonderful stuff. During the game, he asked me what I was doing with myself, as we didn't get time to talk about it the night before. I told him about my job and all that. I was in software development, of course, and our industry has an appalling turnover rate. He nodded sagely and said, as he moved Abaddon into close combat with Celestine, and I quote, "You know, I work for insert company name here to avoid doxing. And we are making insert game name here to avoid doxing. Pass me your CV and I'll get it to the people who it needs to get to." Unquote. That was lovely of him, and I didn't think anything of it, but I gave it to him. A few days later, I got a call inviting me to be a quality assurance tester on a game from said company, and when I turned up to the studio, they told me they wanted to see some of my work the next day and to bring it in with me, and so I did. I'm a level designer by trade and do a lot of that in my spare time too. They seemed quite impressed and told me to stick to QA for the current title, but when the next one came along, they will give me a call. I was on decent money, was not working to the bone, and was able to help an amazing game come out in a decent state. The best part? They kept their end of the bargain. When the time came for their next project to go into pre-production, they hired me as a junior level designer. In the space of a year, I worked my way up to just level designer, and I am now earmarked to take over my own department eventually when the guy above me retires or goes elsewhere. I love my job, but that's not the true message here, alright? I thought that was the happy ending, but apparently not. Whilst playing some combat patrol in the office for our office league, Yes, we have one. How amazing is that? That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Any office with a Combat Patrol League, dude, you're on to a winner. I was rolling dice against one of the animators, and the subject of Dave came up. He told me, "Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy, Dave, huh?" "Yeah, man," I said. "The dude totally came through for me." "Shame though, isn't it?" the animator said. "What?" I asked. "Dave," he said. "Him and his missus have been having serious issues for a while, like. But they split up a few days ago for good. I thought he told you." Everybody in the office knew me and Dave were close, and this animator was also a good friend of the both of ours, and so he was not spreading rumours or anything. "No way," I said. "When did they start having issues?" "Since before the pandemic, I think, or just before the pandemic," the animator said. Wow. Yeah, that just hit home. So the guy was helping you when his own relationship was breaking apart. Man, that's cool. That's cool, man. What a guy. I don't know why. My eyes started to well up. It hit me. Dave had gone out of his way to save my fucking life without realising it. All the while, he was sitting in the most pain he'd ever been in his entire life. His ex-wife took the kids, house, everything around that time, and he had moved out without telling me. I went to find him after conceding the game, and he was in the kitchen. I just hugged him and told him I was there for him, and he could stay at my place for as long as he needed. He just sagged, like he was letting everything out, but only cried a little, but did tell me he had been couch surfing for several months. Dude! Oh man. He stayed with me for a year as he saved up scratch, and finally bought himself a nice bachelor pad closer to work. We are close as brothers now, and vet every woman either of us brings in to date. You need to look out for each other out there, bros. Anyway, that's the story of Dave, the guy who went out of his way to help me, the guy who saved my life, even when his was falling apart. Happy hobbying, Jack. Dude, this is what stoic men do. Like, awesome dudes who are the rocks of other people in their lives. Their entire life will fall apart, and the only thing they'll think about is the people around them. Why? Because men are amazing, and we're protectors at heart. That's what we do. Fucking amazing, dude. This guy handled his business. Absolutely. He should have gone to his friends way before this, but he handled his shit, and he made sure the people around him were okay, and finally he got his reward. When one of those people discovered what was going on, reached down and helped him and said, "You helped me, son. Now it's my turn to help you out. You're staying with me. No rent, no nothing. You're staying with me. I won't hear of it. I won't hear of any rent. You're coming with me, son, and you're going to live with me, and everything's going to be fine. Until you're ready to get back on your feet again." That's bro-ship right there. That's an amazing, amazing note to leave Hobby Nightmares on in 2023. That's brilliant. That's two blokes helping each other out, which is what this entire channel is about. The entire channel is about this. It should sound like me standing in a bar, talking to you, being your friend, and getting you through another day of shit. Right? Because the world's shit enough. There are parts to this hobby that are essential to good mental health. And it's a crime, an absolute crime, that I'm one of the only channels, or the only one as far as I know, doing shit like this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want the competition, but still. Do you know what I mean? Still. There should be more of us doing this. Getting this part of the hobby out there to people. It's an amazing tool to get yourself out of a hole, to start making progress in the right direction, to start your ascent. And hopefully, in 2024, you can use this channel to start doing just that, or to continue doing just that as we go on, alright? I love you all a long time. I will speak to you next week for some Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful, wonderful New Year's Eve, and I'll speak to you then. Have a good one. Bye now.